Hey guys, the next piece of literature we're going to be looking at is a play called The Glass Menagerie by Tennessee Williams. And some of you may have come across him before with Had a Cat on a Hot Tin Roof or A Streetcar Named Desire. Those are some of his most famous performances that he's done and were turned into movies. Some of you may have heard of Marlon Brando and Elizabeth Taylor, both of which starred in those movies there. But we're going to be taking a look at one that's called The Glass Menagerie. Now, Tennessee Williams, he was born in 1911, so we're looking at pre-Great Depression time in Columbus, and he ended up dying in New York City in 1983. Um, they say that it was a combination of drugs and alcohol that killed him. The official report says that he choked on a bottle cap, but that's been debated. But he grew up in St. Louis, Missouri, and that's where our play is actually going to take place. We're going to look at some parallels between that and his life shortly. And he graduated from his third university, the University of Iowa, in 1937. He bounced around a little bit writing plays. The first money he ever got for writing was when he was 16. He composed an essay that received local acclaim and he won $5 for it. Now, we may scoff at that and say, oh, $5, but when you translate into modern day money, that was about $70. Not bad for a first writing of an essay. Now, ended up moving to New Orleans and gained inspiration there from writing. And in 1943, he headed to the West Coast. Now, his sister Rose is going to be mentioned not specifically by name, but by character in our book or our play, The Glass Menagerie. And his sister Rose suffered from what some say was schizophrenia. It wasn't diagnosed quite as such at the time. And she had a prefrontal lobotomy. And we look at that and we say lobotomy, and all of us are sort of cringe and can't believe that happened. That was a pretty common procedure at the time to try to attempt to cure mental illness. And so she had this prefrontal lobotomy, and it caused more problems for her. And she ended up being institutionalized shortly after that was done. And some say that The Glass Menagerie, which was written in 1944, only a year after this procedure was done, was sort of his way of getting through his sister's mental illness and processing what had happened and coping with feelings of guilt that he had for what had occurred to her. Now, in March 31st of 1945, The Glass Menagerie actually opens on Broadway. And 2 years later, probably his most famous play, A Streetcar Named Desire, is going to open there as well. He did earn 2 Pulitzer Prizes, one for A Streetcar Named Desire and another for Cat on a Hot Tin Roof. He did not win any for Glass Menagerie. Williams ended up dying in 1983. As I told you, some say it was drugs and alcohol, but, the autopsy report shows something completely different. Critics appreciated his poetic language. Some say that one of the most famous producers in Broadway, when Williams came to see him for the first time, he had a stack of plays all over on his desk, and this producer just went and swept everything off the table and sat down because all he wanted to hear is what Williams had to say, because he was so different than the other playwrights at the time. And he had this Southern attitude and manner, which is going to come through his stories that we are going to read in these plays. And his cinematic technique was called mise en scène, and in French it means you're placing on the stage. And in its way that visually a playwright creates the story on the stage for others to experience, not just through the spoken language dialogue that happens in the play, but through the visuals as well. And in some cases, it's talking about a split focus where you can see something very clearly up front and then a haze in the background if you're looking at a video, or apartment, a single room as a scene, but it's being split. So you have action happening in another room of the apartment while you're looking at other action happening in a different room of the apartment. And in this case, we're going to have our narrator, Tom, speaking to us from a fire escape. And this was called the fourth wall of theater, which separates the actors from the audience. And Williams broke this. He had the actors engage directly with the audience that was watching the play and speaking directly to them. And we're going to see that as soon as we begin in Glass Menagerie. That's actually how it's going to start out for us. And mise en scene also refers to the arrangement of things that you can see within the frame of the picture. So the props, costume, lighting. And Glass Menagerie, although we're saying that it appeared in Broadway, first broke into Broadway in 1945, it's going to be produced in Chicago before then. Remember, it was written in 1944. And Williams is known for his ability to create tension within a family and alienation where these different characteristics come together. And as we see Glass Menagerie, it's going to be a single mother trying with her two adult children to transition them based on what she wants for their lives. So we'll be taking a look at that. Now, that split focus, we talked about action taking place on opposite sides of the scene, showing different perspectives. And we're going to see that in Glass Menagerie. We'll see at one point his sister Laura laying on a couch in one room while Tom and his mom Amanda and Laura Suter are sitting at a dining room table having an entirely different conversation. So it's giving two perspectives on the same scene. And it's a modern play. The lead character, Tom, is going to narrate the different events of the play. So he's going to be talking to us about what we're seeing. It's called a memory play because Tom's thinking back and recalling all these incidents that occurred and what was happening. So we're getting all of that through the way Tom remembered things. Finally, we've got our setting, and our setting is going to be in St. Louis where he grew up during the Depression, and Tom's going to live with his mother Amanda and his crippled sister Laura. And you can see some of the photos here from the play that was produced from that. Glass Menagerie is considered somewhat of an autobiographical. He's using themes and events from his life and conveying them through his work, through his art. And the Winfields that we're going to meet in this play were very similar to the Williams family in that they moved to St. Louis. They were living in a small apartment. As a matter of fact, the picture on the bottom right of your screen is the picture where Tennessee Williams supposedly lived and where the Glass Menagerie is supposedly to have taken place. And Tom is representative of Tennessee himself, who dreamed of becoming a writer but worked at a shoe factory. And that's the same thing Tennessee Williams did. He worked at his father's shoe factory. The main difference being that Amanda was a single mother, and in Tennessee's life, he had his mom and his dad at that point in time. So what I want you to do, I want you to take a short look at this YouTube video. The link's attached for A&E. They're doing a whole biography on Tennessee Williams, but I only want you to take a look at those first 20 minutes because that's what we're going to be dealing with this week.